This is Dianne Andrews in Black and White. The issues you don't want to talk about. The arts and entertainment you need to know. And now here's your host, Dianne Andrews.
Thanks for being with us here today in TV land and YouTube land, and thank you, audience, for your participation in Dianne Andrews in Black and White. We do series often here at Dianne Andrews in Black and White, and people who've seen my ISIS know that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. And you're going to see some YouTube shows in the middle of these shows that they're going to play some YouTubes from the other shows on ISIS, because that's what we're doing today, another Islamic State show. ISIS, as I've told you before, is Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Then we have ISIL, which is Islamic State of the Levant, which is a region from Turkey on down, which we'll show you a map of that from YouTube, or you'll be seeing that on the television screen. And then we have ICE, which is Islamic State. As Baghdadi said, he's going to cause a caliphate, and he's going to drown America in our own blood. And you can see the areas in that Mediterranean area in the Middle East, and you can see all the countries that I just talked about. Now, Turkey borders Syria, which Assad is the prime minister of Syria. And we're going to talk about why Turkey will not give us the help that we are looking for from Turkey, and why we need Turkey so much, who has a very strong army, one of the strongest after Israel in the Middle East. I'm going to start off with you, Drew, and since you've been to the Middle East, Major, and we talked about this a little bit ourselves. What do you think of what's going on? Did you see the Canadian people that got killed in Parliament yesterday?
I did.
Okay.
I think that's very tragic.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just tragic. I'm not going to comment more than that. I think the basis of what you and I were speaking of is, let's fight these people in an area that's where they're home, instead of having them invade and strike us and hit us where it hurts, which is, you know.
So today I do this periodically. This will be the fourth, again, ISIS show. And we're just going to have a law student here, Mr. Anthony Stewart, who's been with us before on one of the ISIS shows. Thanks for being with us again here, Anthony.
Thank you, Dianne, for having me.
And I have a veteran who is in Afghanistan, because we're going to really talk about the entire Middle East. And he retired in 2009, Shay Wilkes. Thanks for being here, Shay. And we're going to talk about Afghanistan and some of the reasons that, you know, a little bit about Osama bin Laden was still alive, I think, when you were there, right, Shay? You left in 2009, but you're still in the reserve, so they could pull you back into any part of this situation in the Middle East if needed, correct?
Oh, correct, yeah.
So how is it he wasn't caught yet, and you were there in 2009? How did the people feel about America?
You know, it was mixed. You had some that really wanted us there. A lot of the Afghani people they've been at war so long, they want peace. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, there was the element that didn't want us there. They thought we were there to occupy the country and to take over, and that's something that they didn't want. Mm-hmm. And that's where we had to be, you know, the fine line of saying, hey, no, we want to train, we're here to train. You're Afghani people too, you know, be able to have that peace.
And be self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient, right.
Now, Long Survivor was in Afghanistan, the movie Long Survivor, yeah. And I don't know what year, that was about the years you were there, right? 08, 09, I think, was Long Survivor?
Not sure, I think they was in the eastern part of the country.
But it showed that some people there wanted to kill us, which they went after, after our Navy SEALs, after we had come down in their country, and then the people who helped him.
Right.
I saw something on TV, the guy that played the Long Survivor, Mark Wahlberg played him. I can't remember the guy's name, the survivor himself. He was a Navy SEAL. Mm-hmm. But he still communicates to the man who saved him. That was a beautiful story at the end that shows some people love us and they did not want Americans to get killed. Right. And he comes back and forth, and the guy has tried to get him to move to America, but he's refused to move. He still goes back to Afghanistan. As we know, Afghanistan has large marijuana fields, but the largest poppy fields in the world. And poppy is where heroin comes from, and that's the #1 drug of choice on the streets now in America, and I think around the world. So it's very sad. I don't know if that's got anything to do with us being at war between Russia. We were at war with Russia first, and Osama bin Laden was on our side, I think, in Afghanistan.
Right. He was with the Mujahideen.
Mujahideen. Now, Taliban, we hear about Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. The Taliban is really a terrorist group, we call them, but to them, it's a political force in Afghanistan, isn't it?
It was Mullah Omar. He was in the south down in Kandahar. He was the head of the Taliban. Basically, that south area is very key. That's actually where I was, around Kandahar in that area, and that's where Osama bin Laden had been training a lot of the Al-Qaeda and everything there. They basically, what my experience with the Taliban is, and going back to the movie, a lot of the people there, they're bullies to them. You know, they'll go in there.
The Taliban is bullies to the natives.
Right, and you know, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. This is the Islamic law, and you know.
They practice Sharia law, they call it there. Do you know if they practice that?
They have the full burqas and everything more in the south. If you get into somewhere like Kabul, it's more open up in that area. But down in the south, it's more the full burqas, the women wear, and it's more. It's a lot different. I mean, the country is really, and you could split it
a lot
into
more
regions.
conservative and closed, what you think of with really Sharia law kind of.
And you know, if a male comes in, then they'll, you know, because
cover up.
We were there to
no bare arms like me.
Right. We would go in and do go into villages and provide medical stuff and things like that. So you have to kind of fit in with that too when you're there.
So did you put a burqa on?
I did not.
Okay. And it's pretty hot with those burqas on over there. Now, Anthony, we've talked about ISIS before, and let's talk about them again. As we know, in Saddam Hussein, who we invaded and ended up killing Saddam Hussein, was over the president of Iraq. He was a Sunni. And Iran has always been Shias. Right. Those two sects or tribes are Muslims, but the biggest set is Sunnis. And the smaller is Shias, which is where Iran is. But right now, Iran, is also in Baghdad because Shias are running the government since Saddam Hussein, who was a Sunni. Saudi Arabia is mostly Sunnis. And 65 to 70% of Muslims, not the Nation of Islam. Now, that's that's American.
That's right.
And that's mostly black.
That's right.
But when we talk about Islam, there are 1.6 billion Muslims in the world, and I want to make sure people understand this is no prejudice against Muslims. When you look at it, if 10% of what we call terrorists and who are terrorizing the world, like the 60 people who were killed in 3 continents last weekend, ISIS is taking claim, I understand, for that. Kuwait, Tanzania, and also in Paris. So that's a lot. They say they want to break the tourism in Tanzania. That's a beautiful city in Africa that they're trying to not, scare people to not come and to be tourists. What is your take on the Iran and Iraq? What do you think it's going to become one big country?
I don't think necessarily. Well, I do believe that Iran is going to end up with a swath of Iraq. I believe that there's going to be probably a trilateral control of the Mesopotamian region. You're going to have Mesopotamia and Baghdad east under strong Iran control. I don't think the United States is necessarily going to stop that either. That may be a tenet in this next nuclear negotiation, this deal that may come up in the fall. With Iran,
America's doing now?
Yeah, and then you're going to have Saudi Arabia, Mesopotamia, and west. And then you're going to have Turkey and Kurdish Iraq probably north. And that's going to also be contingent upon the fact that we really need Kurdish Iraq, Kurdish Iraq to supply natural gas to Turkey.
Well, the Kurds were fighting against up in Assad's territory, Syria.
That's right.
I've read and heard on the news that they've asked us for weapons, but we never supplied the Kurds weapons to fight against the people.
That's right,
there.
because Turkey wasn't necessarily in favor of that either.
So what do you think is going to happen to Syria? You think it's going to be enveloped into Iran, Iraq area?
I think it's going to be, wait, which one did you say?
Syria.
Syria, yes. I think Assad is probably on his way out.
Yeah.
I think they've been seriously weakened, and I think that Turkey is going to step up and try to control that, because
they've already said Turkey wants Syria.
They want Syria because Iran has had undue influence in Syria, they felt, for a long time.
Now, ISIS is mostly Sunni. Assad was no sect. I mean, not one of those sects. He's one of the smaller tribes. He wasn't Sunni or Shia. He wasn't either one of the tribes. So Turkey, that's why they've been kind of sitting back just waiting on this to happen, it looks like, over in Turkey.
That's right.
What do you think of us not going in with only drones? You being in the military, do we really think drones can win the war? Are we just wasting money having things bombed with no leg and feet force to go in and enforce anything?
I've seen firsthand where drones can help in war.
Help.
Help.
Yes. That's the operative word.
Yeah, help. I don't know that we'll ever get away from, if you don't fully go into something and you just do parts of it, I don't think you're ever going to get the full effect of what's going on.
Because there's nobody to enforce what we just
exactly. Drones play a great role in what we did in Afghanistan, and we were actually excited when we had them. Right. Watching over us a lot of times, but there is the element of the human. The presence of going in there and saying, hey, we are here to help. Hey, we want this to be there. How can we help you? How can we do that? But when you take that step and you put ground troops in there, then you're going to comes all the other things too.
Now, I had heard back in, we talked about this on one of our earlier shows, Anthony, that when we left Iraq, when we withdrew, that they had asked for 10,000 troops to stay there, and that didn't happen. They took $12 billion of the Humvees and the equipment that we left there. They also took over the oil wells. And I'm just going to throw this out. If we're going to go in, maybe we went in wrong, but I think we probably left too irrationally. And why did we take the oil? Why did we protect the oil fields? I mean, why? Can anybody disagree or agree with me on this?
No, I can hopefully offer insight. I mean, I remember at the time, the theory was that we would take over the oil fields and use the proceeds to pay for the war itself.
That's right.
But the problem is if you dump, especially with that being one of the few billion-barrel fields out there, onto the market all at once, you depress the price. Yeah. Look at what's happened with Libyan crude since it's now been liberated.
Well, ISIS is not. They were making $2 to $3 million, and now they're only making $1 million because of the price of crude has gone down.
That's
but
right.
it's still $1 million a day.
And we knocked out some of their refineries,
but it's still $1 million a day. That's how they're recruiting.
Yeah, well, we still knocked out a lot of their refinery capacity, so...
Why can't we knock them all out? If we're going to use drones, why don't we blow up all those oil fields?
Well, then,
you think?
I don't know.
Because they're still getting $1 million a day, you guys, on oil.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that we had knocked out all their refineries.
No, I read we hadn't.
Oh, well.
We can investigate that further. I'll let you know in the next ISIS show, but I don't think so. Did you hear that we had knocked out the oil? Because that's how they're recruiting. Sure. They're building up cash, you know, every day, and they're recruiting in America, as we saw with the Oklahoma guy who beheaded the lady. One lady who survived was on television the other night on the Kelly File, and she showed where that blade went into her neck. And the owner of Vaughn Foods, one of the people that worked at Vaughn Foods, saved her life. He came in when he had beheaded one. He was about to behead her. Yeah. And he was, I hate to call him terrorist, but he was preaching, listening to the preachings of ISIS. Right. Just like Fort Hood. You remember the Fort Hood, Dr. Hassan, who's a psychiatrist? Correct. Who's from America, was also traced back to ISIS roots. Right. Also the guys up in Boston who blew up, people right here are traced back again to Al-Qaeda or ISIS, coming to Yemen back and forth.
And those are the tools that they will use to recruit. Yes. And it is hard for you to establish anything really solid in the United States as far as organizing and anything, which is good, but they will use those tools, the internet, social media, things like that. Hold that thought.
We'll be right back with Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Come on back and get a little more insight into the Middle East. Thanks.
Order your copies now of Dianne Andrews' latest books, Third Man Out, a suspenseful mystery by Dianne Andrews, and Gumbo for the Heart, 25 stories of faith, hope, and charity, both available now on Amazon.com.
Thanks for coming back to the Middle East. We're talking with two gentlemen here, one who's been to Afghanistan and another person who's concentrating on the Middle East and doing some law school projects and is very fluent in what's going on in the Middle East. Let's talk a little bit more about Yemen and Al-Qaeda there, because I understand that's a big training ground. What was that, about 3 months ago, when everybody was scared and they got out of,
That's right.
we had heard, I think, from our government, everything's good in Yemen, and then 3 months later, everybody's running out of there because Al-Qaeda took over.
That's right. That's right. It seems to be a breakdown in the Yemeni government. It was already weak to begin with. One of the things is that the Al-Houthis have lost a lot of legitimacy over time, but they have strong ties to Tehran, which, you know, the Saudis don't like. Riyadh does not like that.
Right.
No more than they enjoy the fact that Tehran has some sort of influence in the al-Assad regime to the north. So I think.
But again, we're back to the Sunni Shia.
That's right.
Yeah.
It is the Sunni, and what we're seeing here from our discussion is probably a new paradigm that each neighbor is concerned about the next neighbor over. And that may be our solution to not necessarily needing troops on the ground, but using competing interests to court favor in the Middle
Anthony,
East.
it's not working now. Drones are not working. We've
Well, no,
lost all.
drones-
No
Drones are
troops
not
on the
right.
ground is not working.
Yeah, it's not the only solution.
I know, but what's our solution now? The president just told us, what, 2 weeks ago? I have no strategy for the Middle East.
He's got a strategy, but he's not going to tell people I'm going to compete interests and
Tell me what it is, because I'm at a loss.
No,
What's
it's
his
very
strategy?
simple. Each is checks and balances. Each neighbor has to be concerned about the next one over. So whenever
That's not his strategy, though.
he's not going to tell you what his strategy
No,
is.
but what is it? What do you think it is?
It is what I just said: checks and balances. Each neighbor has to
He
be.
can't make Saudi. Saudi is already that way against Iran and their neighboring
that's right,
countries.
but he can assist with technology transfers. He
What
can
is he
help
doing,
by
Anthony?
negotiating.
Tell me.
Well,
Why are we even doing drones?
Well, where do they get the F-16s from in Saudi Arabia?
Us.
All right,
That's
so
right.
technology transfer.
Hey, where does
economic
ISIS
incentives.
get his M16s from? Us.
Yeah, well, yeah, left infrastructure.
Everybody
It
got them from us.
Well, if we
It
if we
happens.
look back in history, everybody that we've provided to,
Right.
in the long run, we end up going and fighting.
That's
Yes.
right. Even Osama bin Laden, right, was our friend at
Right.
first in Afghanistan, and then we fought against him, or he fought against us.
He was definitely an interest of convenience.
Well,
That's
do
for
you
sure.
think when our president called them a JV team last year? I definitely don't call people a JV team who grew from 800 4 or 5 years ago to 100,000 people now. They're a strong force to be reckoned with. And I think every vet would say that. What would you say about ISIS? And what do you think? Have you talked to any of the guys who were in Iraq? I have talked to them, and they are just sick about what their blood, sweat, and tears.
I will tell you
happened.
this, that the Iraqi army and the Iraqi police, I don't know, but I know the Afghanistan police and the Afghanistan army were well supplied. Humvees,
Right.
M16s, they were trained. So I know.
I think so was Iraq.
In
before we left,
Iraq
yeah.
was too. I'm more.
$12 billion
concerned on that.
we left that at ISIS got of Humvees and equipment.
As far as ISIS, they are, if they're defeating the army, then they're a strong force. I can tell you that. And they're a force to be reckoned with.
Right.
And with them recruiting and using the social media and all those tools like that, it just makes them stronger nowadays.
And they say they have some experts on social media, the way they're making their life look glamorous, I guess. And these guys, if you look at the people that have gone, or that we know about from Detroit, from Oklahoma, who's interested, they're mostly interested, people sometimes with a problem or a lack of purpose, or a lack of family, or a lack of love, and they're looking for something. And to these guys, this is a glamorous life for them, and something where they think, I can defeat America, which I don't understand that. I still don't.
Well,
you don't like it here, just leave.
Well, that's the way they look at it, but that's also the reason why the best recruitment tool that they could ever have besides social media is our troops in their territory. The great Satan is here, the great infidel is here, join us and get rid of
But
him.
they didn't used to think like that about us. Now it's death to America, but it didn't used to be so much death to America. When you were there, when he was there in 09, was it still a lot of death to America, or certain regions?
Yes, I mean, there were certain hot spots.
Yeah.
And you know, they didn't want us there. I mean, that is their main tool. Hey, they're here to take over our country.
Yeah.
They're going to tell us, they're going to push Islam out. They're going to push our way of life out.
So they think America, which we have done it in other countries, so I guess they have a point.
These folks do not like to be intermeddled with by any force, and, and it doesn't matter whether it's Sunni or Shiite. I mean, remember they held
But don't you think
American
ISIS
hostages.
is going to come after us? ISIS is not, I mean, they're in France, they're all over the world. What do we do with ISIS? That's my major point. What do we do with ISIS?
You can't stop.
Give me something real quick. Let's talk about it real quick.
Okay, I'm going to put it to you like this. I'm going to put it to you like this. England couldn't stop the Vikings, and Rome couldn't stop the Visigoths. We can't do much about terrorism as a whole, except try to choke it at the source.
But this is the biggest and most organized terrorist unit ever been in history. I've read that.
And that will be their flashpoint, but they are
and they got money.
They got a little money now. They got some money.
A lot of money, $1 million a day.
They'll last for about another 10 years, but they're not going back to a caliphate.
You don't think they're going to get to America with more of a force?
They're not going back to caliphate anymore. We're going back to the.
Well, I'm not talking caliphate, but do you think they're going, like Al Qaeda does the big attacks like 9/11, and ISIS does more of the long whoosh? You don't think we're going to start getting more of that in America?
We'll probably get long whoosh, but we're probably going to get it from domestic sources too.
Well, we do have that. In fact, I'm going to do a show on hate crimes versus terrorist crimes.
And Al Qaeda was trying to get Osama bin Laden before he died to go to the smaller attacks like ISIS was doing. He wanted to do the large scale, but we found out that everyone surrounding him wanted to do those. How do we as a country have to think outside the box. We have to part of it is education, but we have to take this and look at that, and we have to counter that. We have to start doing, if they're using these,
being
we
more
have
proactive.
We have to find ways to say, hey, this is not what it's all about.
Hey, I did some shows on computer hacking. They're hacking into our systems, and we're not hacking into theirs.
We've got to step up our game.
Why don't we hack them and find out what's going on?
We've got to step up our game, and I can't tell you if we're doing that or not, but I'm pretty sure we probably are, because if you become stalemate and you're behind the curve, then you're in trouble.
I hope we are, but we hear about when they hack us, when they hacked our sitcom and hacking all over American software into our systems. But we're going to continue this conversation, and it's all evolutional, what's really going on in ISIS. But Time Magazine calls it an ISIS trap, and I think they're right. It is a trap for us to try to figure out what should be the strategy in the Middle East without alienating people, but with also protecting ourselves here in America. Thank you very much. We're going to continue on Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Come on right back. Thank
you. Order your copies now of Dianne Andrews' latest books, Third Man Out, a suspenseful mystery by Dianne Andrews, and Gumbo for the Heart, 25 stories of faith, hope, and charity, both available now on Amazon.com.
Dianne Andrews of Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Thanks for coming back to us to a very critical program element that we're going to talk about today. This is a very special three people that I have standing here with me. I have the President and CEO of SCLC, which is the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And I want to thank you for being here with us, Dr. Steele. Thank you very much. I have Dr. Lloyd Benson from World Link Ministries, who does a Save Our Cities. He's an old favorite of ours on the show. He's been on my show many times to talk about the things he's doing to unite the world, and not just America, because he travels all over the world. And I have from one of our pastors here, Pastor Robinson from Mercury Baptist Church here in Baton Rouge, who's also working with the SCLC, who's going to be here on July 23rd to the 26th on where the real black movement started. People don't understand that it started from Baton Rouge with Reverend T.J. Jemison. I talked about it in my MLK tribute, which is on YouTube. All my shows go to YouTube. I'm the largest talk show in our state right now, Dianne Andrews in Black and White. But we talked about Reverend Jemison because he's a little bit been left out of the history books, but Dr. King consulted on T.J. Jemison before the Montgomery boycott. Let me hear a word from you about that again, Dr. Steele.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yes, we are so proud to be in Baton Rouge, and particularly with our 57th convention. It's because of Baton Rouge that we had a Montgomery. And it was because of a Montgomery we had a Birmingham. It was because of a Birmingham we had a Selma. So people need to know that it started in terms of the bus boycott right here in Baton Rouge. And I think Baton Rouge has not gotten the credit that it should have gotten due to the fact that Dr. King was advised by T.J. Jemison, the doctor himself, Reverend Dr. T.J. Jemison, in terms of how you do it, what happened when you started it, how much support you got. That is always better the second time around. Right. So Dr. King had the philosophy, no reason to reinvent the wheel. Baton Rouge already had the wheel. Right. So what he did was put the sports in it, and he created the completion of the Montgomery bus boycott as an example that was set in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
So we're so happy to have this here, but what is even more important, what we're seeing is SCLC, the Urban League, the NAACP. We're seeing all our leaders will be in the city of Baton Rouge, and we're having a march on July 26th with 25th, I'm sorry, the 25th. End of the SCLC is the 26th. On the 25th, Save Our Cities with Dr. Benson, who's been doing it for the 15th year, I think, because I'm a part of that. Let's talk about that a minute.
Well, it's going to be a joint effort with the SCLC on the 25th of July. It's going to be the greatest unification we're going to see in America to bring change to our community, states, and even to bring our leaders together for a common cause.
Let's talk about what you're doing with this, Pastor Robinson.
Yes, I want to thank God for Dr. Benson because he is courageous enough to cross all denominational lines in order to make, along with Dr. Steele, this SCLC and Save the City March what it needs to be. One of the theme is Save Our City. We've come too far to turn back now.
Yes.
And we want to culminate that with all of the people in our community, our city, across this state and country. Dr. Jesse Jackson, Reverend Al Sharpton, and other civil rights leaders will be a part of this march. And we cannot stress enough how important it is to let people know that the SCLC is still alive, the SCLC is still doing great things across this country for equal rights and civil rights for people across this country.
That's right. It started in January of 1957 with Dr. Martin Luther King and other advisors back then. It is 50 years later from Selma, and I know we all went out and saw the movie Selma, which is a great depiction of what really happened back in the civil rights. So let's join and let's all be a part of the 56th National Convention, July 23rd through the 26th, 2015, and the resident hotel is the Hilton Hotel in Baton Rouge. But on the 25th, on that Saturday at 7 a.m., please come down at the Governor's Mansion and let's start marching to save our cities, save our state, and save this great nation that we live in. Thank you very much. Come back to Dianne Andrews in black and white.